Ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots and freedom-loving Americans, welcome back to another episode of The Source. Rule breakers, lawmakers, and influencers. This is the source where rules get broken for the greater good, laws get made to serve the people, and influence drives us forward. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with Nick Mohnacky, founder of BundleIQ and AI and large learning models pioneer here in West Palm Beach. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Will. This is great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, you're kind of like OG when it comes to AI, right? You've been doing this since when? When did you first start?
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that, you didn't know what you didn't know. And obviously, it's manifested in a way that we probably couldn't have fully grasped at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The transformer model that came out, in the white paper, and I think it was December 2017. Transformed everything for us quite early.
If I think back in time, right, to some friends threw around words like machine learning, right? We're building programs that are utilizing machine learning. So was machine learning sort of the precursor to AI and where we are today? So maybe explain a little bit about the evolution from machine learning to large language models to true AI that we're experiencing today.
Yeah, for context, just a little bit about my background. I'm not a software engineer, but I've been a technical founder for many years now, kind of the token startup guy around town, as you know, since 2010, really. And then fast forward to 2018, the term AI as we know it today, or as we sort of embody it today, is really more about large language models and creativity and kind of this emergent technology that wasn't strict or isn't strict per se. It's a little bit of a black box. Whereas with machine learning was all rules and logic based. And so there's a lot more, we'll call it extensibility to the way that it works, and we kind of can make sense of it a little bit more.
Sort of more of the if then then
exactly.
that,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If this then that.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of
it's more
logical tree.
Based, logical, math based. I mean, obviously everything's kind of math based, but it's the AI as we know it today is more human like. Yeah, and it's more approachable too, because it's literally you just talk to it.
Yeah, and I went to a seminar about a year ago, and they were saying that really all AI does is try and solve the next word. So when you start typing what, it's going through color, shape, size, right? And then you put in the next word, what color, and then is, was, were, right? And it's just kind of following that tree.
Exactly. So think of it as kind of an in-memory brain, so to speak, that can be predictive about the thing that you might or anticipatory about the thing that you might say. And it does it obviously in language, but now it's also being trained on math and some more sophisticated in physics and things like that. But it certainly is more of a predictive model that, that's what they inherently say is if you're intelligent, your ability to recognize patterns is typically kind of a foundational quality of intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so does, in some of the AI models that are out there right now, is it learning about us as an individual? Right. I know when I go into Grok, it says, well, based on previous conversations, right? So it's referencing the past and our past dialogue, but is it extrapolating for the future using my past, in a way, creating its own predictive analysis of what I'm going to say next?
Yeah, in essence, yeah, it's definitely learning about the things that you have said and building sort of a mental model of or working, understanding of who Will is based on the things that you've articulated and communicated. But I think and you probably have experienced this, there's a bit of a bell curve in that, whereas it can sort of only get so much information and retain that in working memory for a certain capacity, and then beyond that capacity it starts to kind of drop off, and you're like, you remember that one thing I told you?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
that I'm handsome, I'm smart.
Exactly.
And
yeah. Well, those are foundational things about you, so I don't forget that. But yeah, I mean, you've experienced this, and LLMs, there's everyone, even with our business, they ask us what LLM are you, or what LLM are you using? And the reality is we're LLM agnostic at BundleIQ. We're not an LLM company per se. I mean, LLM is kind of more the articulation layer of the knowledge extraction and brokering of information across people and data and departments and permissions and all those kinds of things. So we're kind of like the substrate that sits underneath the LLM or orchestrates with the LLM to kind of communicate data at scale.
So when you look at, okay, so you have a data set, right? And so ChatGPT was trained on one data set. Grok has been trained on a different data set. The LLM is actually the robotic arm, so to speak, that goes and grabs the data and then pulls it into whatever the query engine is to be able to create the response. Is that what an LLM actually does?
So think about the LLM as the communication layer around data. There's this popular term called RAG now, retrieval augmented generation, which is like how you can point an LLM at a data set that's full of vectors and then being able to go and find the right bits of information based on what Will's asking and retrieving that information and injecting it into the LLM so that the LLM can communicate a response.
Okay.
That's kind of what's happening. It's like I define the raw material that can answer this question or can respond to Will so that I can give him a response. And the LLM is really more the articulation piece of it. So if I were to give you, let's say, a bunch of words that are, not maybe fully coherent in paragraph format, and then the LLM makes it coherent in
So if you're like saying zebra, donkey, lion, the LLM would say mammals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though they're disparate, right? What's the unifying factor of all of those words?
Depending on the context of what you're asking it to do. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, your company, BundleIQ, one of the things that's unique about you is that people get to use their own data sets, right? Whereas, we've talked on this show before with other guests who have talked about AI, and really the flaw of AI is garbage in, garbage out, or a biased data set will produce biased results. So BundleIQ really addresses that issue for people who want to query their own data in a completely agnostic way.
Totally. Yeah. You think about, the name BundleIQ is like packaging up these the contents of, these little miniature libraries, call them that, of information that you can then sort of tap into. And maybe you tap into one bundle or two bundles or all bundles. And bundles are kind of like folders, I guess. And the core IP of what we built is the ability to not only package up information, but to be able to do that at scale across many people. So the people layer is very important because, there's if you use ChatGPT today, it's single player, meaning it's not easy for you to take the insight and be able to kind of broker that insight across multiple parties, or communities or groups or teams in this case. With BundleIQ, it's very easy to share knowledge across people and departments and permissions and things like that. So the orchestration of that's really critical as well. Also for privacy purposes and data privacy and security and compliance and all those types of things. Like, if you're an intern at the company, you might not want to have access to the entire data set. You might only be a few files in the data set, things like that.
So what was the impetus for creating BundleIQ? Who was your original target audience, and how has that evolved as AI has evolved and how the company has grown over the past couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as I mentioned, we got started in 2018. I read this book, Superminds, by this guy named Thomas Malone that started School of Collective Intelligence at MIT. And I was really inspired by that because I had never heard of collective intelligence, which is kind of the study of how people come together to solve problems. And the whole premise of the book was the surprising power of humans and machines co-creating together. So kind of, augmenting the intelligence, because we've this, in the information age, we've reached our capacity of our ability to make sense of the world around us.
Right.
Quite literally, who's reading 3,000-page climate reports or these omnibus bills and they got 6 hours to vote on that night. It's insane. Right. So my sort of core thesis was like, there are many billions at this point of knowledge workers around the world. I'm a pretty smart guy. I can't make sense of half the stuff that I'm trying to make sense of. because there's not enough time in the day. And furthermore, like, how do you make connections across information that maybe is disparate and also not obvious? So, I was like, there's got to be a better way to bring this information into a space that allows me to workshop it and make sense of that content. So I was like, core thing, I want to help people make sense of the world around them. Secondly, I want to empower collective intelligence because it's not a single player world that we live in. And then furthermore, I want to augment people's ability to kind of get their time back so that we can do the high level creative thinking that humans normally do instead of like the rigorous kind of processing work that machines do really well.
And so, people have talked a lot about AI agents, right? That are built to go out and perform certain functions and certain tasks. So are AI agents inside of BundleIQ, or would you have to create an AI agent to fetch data to do certain things on automation, or is it really more of me being able to coalesce an entire library, a life of work? You originally said way back when it was like research scientists were a great case for this, right? Because rather than hand reading or having your research assistant read papers that you wrote, 30 years ago, you can upload all of those in PDF form, query them, and create new work based off of previous work and reference everything, et cetera.
So totally. So we were Google Notebook LM before Google, like 4 years before Google Notebook LM. We launched the first chat agent, which we call our AI is called ALANI. I grew up in Hawaii, so it's kind of a nod in my past. A year and 9 months before ChatGPT. We also have patents. So we were doing RAG before there was even a word for it. There was no such thing as vector databases at this time. So we were doing a lot of things like early on, and we were a small startup in Palm Beach County that is underfunded, right? But we learned a lot, and we've been able to take a lot of these lessons and build them into the enterprise. We had real Fortune 100 customers now. And then also extend that to the greater communities of knowledge workers, because here's the thing, like there's only so much time in the day, right? We're bound by 24 hours in the day. We can't go outside of that. And so if you think about like the structure, and I'll talk to the agentic side of things. So if we're bound by time, there's kind of three nodes in the time. You have people, information, and productivity. The thing is, people and information are correlated. The more people, the more information, the less productivity. There's only 24 hours in a day. So I was like, how can we, and this was the thesis and the basis for our patent. I was like, how can I help ensure that we can know what Will is focused on, and so that we can anticipate what Will might need, so that Will doesn't have to email Nick or, jump on a call or whatever it is, right? Read a document. So we said, what if we can recognize what a user's reading, writing, saying, asking, and then offer contextually relevant information from a predetermined knowledge base that we'll trust. The verified knowledge base, not the open internet, not something that somebody said on Medium that you maybe verify or whatever it is. So that was the context for it. And now with agents, it's like, okay, well, there's maybe some sophistication to how we surface this knowledge. Maybe it's in a department that maybe Will doesn't have access to, but the AI has access to it. Maybe there's things that we can do to basically help broker this knowledge and surface information. So for instance, like knowledge lives in three places. It lives in your head, right? You have ideas all the time, to-do lists, whatever it may be. It lives inside your company. So inside the four walls of a private enterprise, could be an organization, this news organization, whatever it may be. And then it lives externally. Right now, this is an external knowledge base for a lot of people. The challenge is it's not easy to recall the thing that Nick said 5 weeks from now.
Right.
Why? Because you have to go and you have to listen. Like, it's just not easy to jump back into those things. So I said, what if we could create this knowledge canvas, this kind of network, right? We're already working with individuals. They're documenting their ideas and notes and things like that, personal knowledge management. We're now working with organizations inside the company so that Will can tap into these documents, presentations, whatever it may be. But now we're adding this third node to the ecosystem where we're like, okay, well, what if we can ensure that people can subscribe to these knowledge bases, the verified data sets that they care about, not the open internet. Again, there's this private layer of the internet, this private and proprietary that maybe isn't easily accessible.
Right.
And boom, subscribe. And now, you know what? That thing that Will's writing in that email, if you're like, let me just highlight this and just be like, I know there was something around here in this like sphere of influence that I could tap into, but I literally have no idea what to search. or what to look for, or even what question to ask. So you highlight a paragraph, and then Alani says, hey, it's minute 12 of this podcast that you listen to. That's kind of the essence of what we're doing here.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. The, you had, what had come up for me while you were saying it, I know some of the customers you're working with, so I don't want to go beyond what's proprietary, what's not proprietary. But if I look at my business and I look at my server and I look at how many files have been created over the years, and most likely in 20, 30 years of business, there's a lot of redundancy, right? Files that were recreated because either we couldn't find the original file and it was like, well, let's just recreate it. It's faster than wasting hours trying to find it. But then there's also that intellectual knowledge and experience that has been cataloged in the past, user manuals, innovation, it's whatever, it could be in employee incentives, a million different things. So do you look at Alani as something that could sit over a company's server and database and clean it up more than just file name duplication, right? Because Microsoft will do that for you, right? What I'm really looking for is I named the file XYZ 2026, right? But it actually is the exact same exact same information as XYZ 2025, right?
Totally.
So, so if I did a duplicate file search, it's going to recognize it as two different files when actually the data underlying it is completely the same, which is taking up server space, which is then, causing storage issues, et cetera.
Yeah.
So is that something that Alani, if I plugged it into overlay over my server or exported all my server data into an Alani database or a BundleIQ database, could Alani make my company more efficient and compress my storage and all of those things in the process?
Yeah, you're touching on a really, really important node here. And the world hasn't maybe seen this yet, but this is sort of where things are going. And what that is, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. There's a lot of version control issues. Documents have sort of been like the store of information, so to speak. Obviously, they're in a database, but it's in a PDF format, right? So you have this unstructured data set that's pretty voluminous in most
voluminous.
Yeah, most organizations. And then you have structured data, which are typically like spreadsheets and SQL databases and things like that. So what you're saying is what we're doing, what we're kind of talking about here is like the document maybe needs to become like emergent, meaning it's always on. So it's less about the word file and it's more about the node of information. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is certainly what we can offer today, and also where we're like fine tuning and where we're going is like the idea that knowledge is emergent, because it is. Things change all the time. SOPs change all the time based on, who's doing something, a new upgrade, whatever it may be. And so file version control is a big issue. It's a massive issue. And duplication of information is a massive issue. Duplication of effort is a massive issue across scale. So it's almost as if you're going from like the source of truth, so to speak, is a file, to the source of truth now is a node in the knowledge graph.
Yeah.
And it's referential.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, 2 weeks ago it said this, but Will updated this thing, by maybe just saying, hey, Alani, this is new now. And by the way, here's a video of how we change things. So analyze that too. And here's the new node that you need to have in this graph.
So I'm kind of visualizing like if in the old days when you had a lot of paper files, right, you'd create stacks on your desk, right? Now they weren't in file folders and they weren't put in a cabinet, right? So what you're saying is that it would be reading everything as if it was just files spread out on a desk instead of in a folder, in a file cabinet, stored someplace.
Exactly. Where it is doesn't matter as much.
Right.
Or what tag it has doesn't really matter as much. It's the contents of the information.
Yeah.
And also how it's maybe evolved, how it's in conflict with each other, or how it's changing, et cetera.
And so, give us some of the use cases that I know you're doing some stuff in the events and meeting space. And then you're also doing, sort of corporate warehouse, companies that have multiple divisions and years of files, et cetera. I'm kind of bringing those all together. Kind of talk a little bit about some of the use cases of clients that you actually have now, and how Alani is changing their business.
Yeah. So the evolution of the company, we started out with the individual knowledge workers. So like personal knowledge management. So the ideas of like, I need to help Will make sense of the things that he cares about, politics, whatever it may be. Okay, that's where we started. And so it was a very B2C type exchange, and then B2C to B eventually, because you're like, wow, I can actually use this for my company now, or whatever. Yeah. So that's the individual knowledge workers. We still support those folks. So it's like, if you run out of capacity in ChatGPT because you can't upload 1,200 videos or whatever it may be, like, you use Alani for that. So that's one customer. The other customer is the enterprise. So inside of an enterprise, like I said, there's a lot of challenges on how to access information, and ultimately how to transmit that information across time and space. So for instance, there's a customer that has problems and solutions at different places in different, call them, places of work in different places around the world. Mm-hmm. Well, there's quite literally tens of thousands of employees. Yeah. So it's like, I didn't know, like, I'm up against a problem, and I don't even know what to search. I just need to explain that this is my challenge that I'm experiencing. Yeah. So what if Alani could say, hey, based on this information, maybe ask you a couple of questions just to support the context. It's agentic, it's an agent, kind of fine-tuned for this workload and workflow. So it asks you questions, and then it says, okay, here are some possible solutions, which will give you like a list of solutions. And then another agent goes into the solutions and says, based on these solutions, these are the top 3 that I think could support you. Mm. And so it does its own analysis based on, because in this case, there are, many pieces of information as a possible solution, right? So instead of you having to click on each one of these and read all this information to like try to figure it out yourself, the agent is doing the extra step and say, based on what you said, this is contextually the most relevant solution. And by the way, here are the 5 people that are part of this. Yeah. So that's like connecting the people and the data at scale. So that's an enterprise use case. Pretty sophisticated. All of it built on the back of what we built, which is our kind of neural engine, so to speak. And then the third use case, or the third kind of, we'll call it customer, is essentially like all of the external knowledge. So think about like conferences, trade associations. Think about it. They touch every industry. Mm-hmm. So you're at work now, and you're maybe that person at that one location, and you're like, crap, I just paid $3,500 to go to this event in San Francisco,
and I had a good time, but I don't remember anything.
There were over 350 keynote presentations from the brightest people on the planet about this topic that I care about. Yeah. And now I'm going into a meeting in an hour, and I have to explain the one thing that I was trying to, there's no way to tap back into that information. Yeah. It's like, it's gone. Yeah. Right. So,
or, I mean, me as an individual, if I'm at a conference, I'm doing one of 3 things. I'm taking pictures of the slides, right? Which means I'm not paying attention to what they're saying, because I'm stuck on like, oh, wow, this is really important. Let me take a picture of it. Right. So now I have things in my film roll. I am then either sending an email to myself
to remind you
with all my notes, right? Or I'm putting it to Evernote or something else. And I just wind up with more and more piles of information in different places. And then, after I left the conference, I went and I did a tour of San Francisco, and I took 400 pictures, right? Well, guess what? I'm totally forgetting that those slides are back there.
Exactly.
So when you look at it from the user experience who attended a conference, right? Is there like a conference architecture that you are plugged into that then people can retrieve that data?
Yeah. So the enterprise version, we're now affectionately calling the Alani Hub. This is kind of the command center, so to speak, where data lives and you broker data, things like that. And then this new product is called Alani Connect. So this new product's kind of more consumer friendly. It's not as robust as the hub. And what it does is it's almost like imagine if like ChatGPT and Reddit had a baby. Right. So it's like you have all of the conference material at your fingertips, where you can just ask any question, ask Alani anything, and it goes across all the keynote presentations, takes you straight to the...
So I could say Thursday afternoon, Nick Mohnacky was talking about X.
What was it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Give me the main points of his presentation, and it'll tell me.
It'll tell you that. It'll take you to the exact moments in the presentation as the citation.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is really insane.
So that's
super
the
cool.
single player experience. But what happens at a conference? You're networking.
Right.
Right. You meet Joey in the lobby, or you forget his name, and you're like, so now there's also this community element to it. So you log in, you have your bio, it says who you are. It has maybe a link to your LinkedIn, a link to your website, and maybe if you want, like a Calendly link to meet with Will, if you wanted to have that available to people. And you could very quickly see who's here. These are real people. They're not pseudonyms. They're not they're 1765, right? And you can be like, search or ask ALANI. Well, who was that one person that said that they work at a media company in Palm Beach County? And tells you where it is, that's who it is.
Yeah.
So it's the people and the data. And then you can also, there's the Reddit style feed. It's like, if I wanted, let's say you found something really interesting and you're like, you tag me in it. You're like, dude, this is the thing that we needed to figure out together.
Yeah.
We were talking about it.
Yeah.
It is. And then now it's part of a public feed, or private feed, but public feed inside the room. Yeah. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So now, let's say I'm a content producer, right? Is there a way for people to subscribe to my content if I've been inside of ALANI?
Yeah.
If we're inside of BundleIQ.
Yes.
Right. And they're like, oh, I follow Will. I know he did a talk 10 years ago.
Yes.
Right. I can subscribe to my channel, so to speak.
Exactly. So we would spin up a connect room, and all of the people, all the followers, all the subscribers would be able to join it. All of your material would be in a library. So you can ask ALANI anything about anything that was said about AI, government, whatever it is. You can get that. Those are private conversations with the content and the material. But as soon as you want to share that to the group, now that becomes public insight for the group to then have discussions around and conversations around, upvote, downvote, that sort of thing. So this becomes like the call it a digital twin, so to speak, of your platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's amazing about it, and I won't go into too much detail around the because there's some like future casting here. How sitting around in a couple months, I'll come back up. But basically,
episode 2, we'll be talking about
some of the things that we're working on. But basically, this becomes like a closed space and a safe space for your community to have these types of conversations. And that's essentially a subscription to the data.
And is that monetizable?
Yeah. If you wanted to. Yeah, you like, we have Stripe integration, so similar to Substack or something like that. You could say, I want to charge $100 a year or $9 a month, whatever it is.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
let's go. The entrepreneur's entrepreneur.
That's right. Yeah,
well, I like that.
And for a lot of these publishers, we call them publishers, this is entirely new revenue streams.
Yeah,
this is like like found money basically. And what's amazing about it is like they get first party data. They know who these people are. These humans.
So let me ask you a question beyond that, which is, okay, I'm reading your library, and my premise is Nick's full of shit and doesn't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
Can I query ALANI and say, hey, based on your knowledge of nanobots, does Nick know what he's talking about?
So you mean go to an outside source, like go out to the internet and say like, hey, let's cross-examine this. Yeah.
Or is there, potentially, okay, let's say, you keep it simple, right? I'm Republican, you're Democrat, right? I don't know what you are, it doesn't matter. But I'm, saying all of these things that are happening, right? And you say to ALANI, I want to verify, is that really what's happening? Because I'm not hearing the same things that person is saying.
Yeah.
Can it look at something in the ALANI ecosystem that's the counter voice and create a comparison of, well, this point's valid, this point's not?
That's a really good point. So what's amazing is that like when you create a bundle for your content company, there's going to be things that come up and guests that say certain things, right? And maybe they age out, like, the AI is changing dramatically, right? So maybe there's another bundle of information from one of the conferences, and it's, an AI conference. So you're like, well, that's interesting. Can you give me some contrast to what's being said here? And the answer is, yeah, we can do that.
Very cool.
Yeah. But you would do that today. You would do it in the hub. So all of the Connect rooms that you have subscriptions to, they're also bundles that you have access to in the hub.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of the playground where you can sort of like workshop this stuff.
Yeah.
The Connect is really more for connection and quick insights and sharing and things like that. The hub is like your rigorous knowledge work.
Okay.
And in this case, that would be kind of like, I need to compare and contrast things. I'm trying to really make sense of this point that the senator said or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have something that I wanted to ask you, right? So, we're seeing it here in the city of West Palm Beach that a lot of senior people in the various departments are leaving and going into the private sector. And with that is coming a significant brain drain of the knowledge over the past 20 years, why the city did this, why it didn't do that, right? And then you have new employees coming in that are trying to recreate the wheel. And maybe there's bona fide reasons why certain things aren't done. Like, so I'm on planning and zoning, right? And a lot of planners are leaving and going to the private sector. But those planners have intimate knowledge of neighborhoods and properties and specific things that have happened over time. How can either BundleIQ or AI datasets help communities that are having this knowledge drain, retain the intellectual capital that's really important for what happened in the past and how it's going to affect the future?
I mean, this is a massive, massive opportunity, a massive issue. Is brain drain. So you have a lot of people retiring, boomers retiring, even some folks in Gen X are retiring. What happens, right? Where that knowledge, like I said, knowledge lives in three places: in your head, in the company, and externally. So like a lot of this stuff lives in their own head.
Yeah.
So what if we were able to do exit interviews? That was mandatory.
Yeah.
We're going to do exit interviews for all these folks. Also, maybe similar like private equity, we keep them on payroll as a consultant for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we have a question, it's captured not on a phone call, but it's captured in transcripts, things that we can download and like put into the neurograph, right?
Yeah.
Or a knowledge graph. That's a solution, and that's a solution ubiquitously, like across the board, is doing stuff like that.
So theoretically, I mean, West Palm Beach could take its entire, looking at my company, right, as the example, right, I have my server and all my files. West Palm Beach could take all of its server, all of its file, all of its server data, put it into bundles that could then be queried and brought forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And then I think the fly in the ointment is this next generation is going into AI for answers, queries, etc., without the complete knowledge from the past. So I think in addition to the brain drain, you're also going to have this data corruption that's going to happen because people aren't utilizing past experience and knowledge to create the decision. They're going out to AI and asking AI to create the decision based on, its knowledge of the municipality and its rules.
Yeah, and you have to remember, like, it's a word salad.
Yeah.
So and it's synthetic. So there's a clear demarcation in our timeline of human history. Pre-December 2022, pre-ChatGPT, and post-ChatGPT. So everything post-ChatGPT has a higher percentage than zero that it's synthetic information, right? So it's not just and then pre-ChatGPT is primarily human-oriented knowledge, things that were written. So it's like, Gutenberg press, handwritten
digital Bible versus printed Bible.
Exactly. So this is something that I think, look, it's very nuanced, but it's also these are human conditions that we're all accustomed to, like, being creative and solving for. The cool thing is that we can expedite the solution just by taking a couple steps in this direction. Like I said, bundling information, things like that.
Awesome.
And
so West Palm Beach procurement, reach out to Nick. He's right around the corner from you.
Yeah, I am. We're a West Palm Beach company.
You're at 1909, right?
1909, yeah. And I've been, sort of building the startup ecosystem here for a long time.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
And we launched our company in West Palm Beach, and we're committed to staying here and building here and being a unicorn here.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, thanks for coming today. It was a pleasure having you. And if people are interested in BundleIQ or interacting with Alani, where do they go?
BundleIQ.com.
Okay.
There you go. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Source. Check us out on roarnetwork.us. See you next time.